Imagine discovering thousands of kilograms of gold right in the heart of the desert. Nevertheless, this tale is significantly more perilous than it initially appears. The narrative commences with a train journeying through the desolate desert regions, where a man named Dex was seated, consuming some bread. Shortly thereafter, when the train came to a halt, Dex offered his bread to a woman who was sitting nearby. He disembarked from the train and proceeded to a nearby store to inquire about someone's address. However, the shopkeeper remained unresponsive and continued to watch television quietly. When Dex inquired about the restroom, the man merely gestured to indicate the direction. Upon reaching the restroom, Dex found it in a state more deplorable than a sewer, yet out of necessity he had to relieve himself amidst the swarming flies. A short while later, another man outside inquired if he was awaiting a taxi to travel to the compound. Dex responds affirmatively to the man and promptly exits to cleanse his face. Subsequently, Dex embarks on the journey towards the compound with a taxi driver named Bruce. However, the desert's temperature was exceedingly high, prompting Dex to activate the vehicle's air conditioning. Nevertheless, Bruce deactivates it, explaining that it would exert strain on the car's engine, potentially leading to a breakdown. After traveling for a considerable duration, their vehicle's tire ruptured. Consequently, they were compelled to... They had to stop to change the tire. That's when they saw two wild dogs fighting. Bruce pursued one of the dogs away, but struck the other dog with a stone to alleviate it from its pain. Subsequently, they continued their journey, during which they paused to refuel. As it became quite late, they made the decision to spend the night there. While sitting by the fire, Bruce inquired of Dex why he desired to go to the compound, and Dex responded that he was heading there in pursuit of employment. But Bruce tells him that there's nothing but hard labor there, yet Dex wanted to go. The next morning, Dex started driving the car, and Bruce fell asleep. But after a while, Dex started feeling quite hot and turned on the air conditioning, which actually damaged the car's engine. When Bruce found out about this, he got very angry at Dex. However, Dex apologizes and goes a little distance away to relieve himself, but there he sees some pieces of rock, which seem quite strange to him. And when Dog examines them more closely, he discovers that the stone is actually gold, and upon realizing this, he promptly calls out to Bruce. But Bruce informs him that if the stone turns black upon being burned, then it is not genuine gold. However, it does not turn black when burned, which indicates they have indeed found a substantial amount of gold. Subsequently, they commenced excavating the earth to retrieve it. Nevertheless, the gold-laden rock proved to be so enormous that it wouldn't budge, prompting them to attempt fastening a rope to the vehicle to haul it out. Yet, that plan was unsuccessful as well. As evening approached, Bruce ventured out to search for wood due to the presence of a wild canine in the vicinity. They could only be driven away with the help of fire. After that, Dex also gathered wood with Bruce, and then both of them sat down after lighting a fire. He says that now our lives will completely change. Bruce told Dex that they wouldn't be able to extract so much gold alone, so one of them should go to the city and bring back an excavating machine. Then, Dex advises Bruce to travel to the city. The following morning, Bruce provides Dex with some food and drink supplies, along with a satellite phone and a knife for protection. Afterward, Bruce informs Dex that it might require 5 days to return with the machine and then departs in his vehicle. Dex then fastens a tent cloth to a tree and begins establishing a place to reside. Later, he inspects his satellite phone. Subsequently, he ventured out to collect some firewood, and upon his return, he noticed a scorpion creeping close to the tent. He swiftly seized a stick and drove the scorpion away. Before long, nightfall arrived and Dex warmed up his meal to eat. Later on, he heard the noises of wild dogs engaged in a fight which terrified him immensely, leading him to remain awake throughout the entire night. Eventually, morning arrived. Dex was exceedingly fatigued, so he went to relieve himself but hesitated to make use of the water. Just then, his phone started ringing and he quickly hurried to answer it. However, before he could reach it, the call ended. Now, Dex began wandering around in distress and soon noticed a crashed airplane nearby. He decided to establish his shelter in that airplane, but from there he couldn't see the gold nugget. Therefore, he reconsidered his decision. Nevertheless, he constructed a new tent using some fragmented components of the airplane and went to rest inside it. Upon awakening, he realized that his face was sunburned due to the intense sunlight. Subsequently, he succumbed to temptation and began chipping away at some fragments of the gold nugget. At that moment, he received a phone call from Bruce, and he answered it to converse with him. Bruce informed him that it might require a few additional days to bring the equipment and advised him to protect the gold. After that, night fell, and while Desk was guarding the gold, some wild dogs appeared, which he managed to scare away with the help of fire. The next morning, Dax filled a bottle with some water and started drinking it. Just then, a snake appeared, and Dax began to attack it with his knife. However, it accidentally slipped from his grasp, and then Dax came to the realization that he had inadvertently dropped the water bottle. However, at this point, more than half of the water had unfortunately spilled, prompting him to proceed towards the plane to begin collecting additional supplies for the tent. Then he saw someone coming his way. He quickly retreated into the plane and hid. However, shortly thereafter, that individual approached the aircraft and began insisting that Dax emerge from the plane. And when Dax eventually emerged, it turned out to be a woman who generously provided Dax with food and beverages. However, Dex did not take anything from her. Then the woman asked Dex what he was doing in this desert. However, Dex did not give her any answer, but the woman started saying that he was hiding something. After that, the woman began to chase Dex, but he reached near his tent. However, the woman started breaking into his tent, and seeing this, Dex attacked the woman on the head with an axe, which resulted in her dying on the spot. However, Dex proceeded to take all the valuable and useful items from the deceased body and then buried it in a pit right there. Nevertheless, after some time had passed, wild dogs began to tear apart and consume the corpse. Dex then chased the dogs away and relocated the body to a distant place. He felt deeply regretful about all these events. Subsequently, he received a phone call from Bruce, who informed him that he had located the machine, but it might take a bit longer for him to arrive. But now Dex's condition had worsened significantly, yet he saw a truck passing by. However, due to his greed for gold, he didn't ask for help and remained there. While he was collecting firewood for the evening, a sudden sandstorm arose, prompting him to sprint towards his tent in a state of fear. Unfortunately, the intense storm scattered his tent's contents. Now, Dax was frantically running to preserve his life. Amidst this chaos, a tree branch impaled his abdomen, and when he regained consciousness, he found himself entirely buried in sand, with the branch still embedded in his stomach. But without looking at his wound, he approached the golden stone and felt a sense of relief upon witnessing the gold. Subsequently, Dax extracted a twig from his abdomen and heated a bottle cap to apply it to his wound, which inflicted significant pain, causing him to lose consciousness there. Eventually, when he regained consciousness, a woman was standing over him with a bow and arrow. However, to Dax, she seemed to resemble the same woman he had previously killed. The woman kindly offered him some water before departing, and soon after, she was nowhere in sight. Then his phone rang once more, and Dex informed Bruce about the woman he had encountered. Bruce then instructed him to eliminate her. Subsequently, the woman returned to Dex and began assisting him. However, Dex instructed her to leave, and the woman inquired, "Have you seen my sister?" Dax didn't respond to her. But now, due to the pain, he passed out again, and when he opened his eyes, he was surrounded by dogs. He quickly called Bruce and asked him to come quickly. But then we find out that Bruce was sitting at a distance watching his death unfold, and now wild dogs began to tear Dax apart. But until the end, Dax kept looking at the gold, and when he died, Bruce arrived there with the machine. And precisely as he advanced toward the gold, an arrow flew directly and struck his chest, resulting in his death alongside Dex. Consequently, the movie concludes at this point. What are your thoughts on whether what transpired to them was just or unjust? If you enjoyed this video, kindly give it a thumbs up. Additionally, subscribe to the channel and make sure to comment on your impressions of the movie.